choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch is brought to you by Nedbank.
hours Central African time. Welcome to this edition of Nedbank Business Watch. A very good afternoon to you. We hope that you've been having a good day so far and that you are ready to enjoy this show. It's going to be a very, very interesting show indeed when we are trying to track some of the business developments happening in the Kingdom of Eswatini this week. My name is Sifiso Mumalo. Happy to be your host this afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Business Watch, powered by Nedbank Eswatini. My name is Lungelele Makagula. We are on YouTube. Watch us on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. Thank you for tuning in.
Look, our first, sort of story that we want to drill into today, the Kingdom of Eswatini obviously is making a bold statement on the global economic stage. Today marks officially the commencement of the inaugural Eswatini Investment Conference. It is the first one ever, a two-day event that is aimed at attracting both international as well as domestic investment. It is under the theme, creating opportunities for rapid economic transformation. Now, the conference brings together policymakers. There's going to be investors. Industry leaders will also be under the same roof, and they will be all exploring Eswatini's potential as a prime investment destination. With the backing of the European Union and the International Trade Center, the presence of the Prime Minister Russell Dlamini, who was also present during the early hours of the morning today at the launch of the Business One-Stop Shop. Later on today, we'll be at the conference itself, which underscores Eswatini's commitment to economic growth and development. We want to look at the implications of this development with Sanele Sibiya, our economist, on the show today, so stay tuned for that.
Afternoon once again. Improving your financial health starts with better budgeting and saving habits. Nedbank Eswatini wants to ensure the financial health of Emaswati by sharing tips on how to save and invest for their future. Workplace banking consultant Mzwandile Dlamini will join us today in the studio to share more on how to save money and invest for our future. Then on our final segment, later, Toba Kamete will analyze today's market analysis. For now, let's go for a quick ad break. We come back with our business news.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
Welcome back. This is Business Watch, powered by Nedbank Eswatini. Thank you for tuning in.
Now, we get straight into our business news now. In a landmark move to simplify business processes as well as boost investment, the Prime Minister, His Excellency Russell Dlamini, has officially launched the Business One-Stop Shop, known as BOSS, at the Sibegelo building in Mbabane. During the launch, His Excellency announced that the Business One-Stop Shop has been made an integral part of the World Trade Organization Investment Facilitation for Development Agreement, which is an agreement under the World Trade Organization. Now, this milestone initiative aims to streamline service delivery, cut red tape, as well as create a conducive environment for both local and international investors.
Not long ago, His Majesty's government held a government-to-business dialogue which alluded to the importance of documenting business bottlenecks to be addressed by Cabinet as a matter of priority. This one-stop shop is therefore a step forward, a step towards that direction to address business bottlenecks, and will act as a precursor for instilling investor confidence in our business environment. As His Majesty's Government, we make an undertaking to ensure the operationalization of the one-stop shop in this quarter of the current fiscal year. And today we are delivering on that promise. The BOSS implementation, however, will be done in phases. We are starting with a hybrid model encompassing a physical and online interface model. As we roll out the country's e-government strategy, we plan to go fully online in the future. We will also be incrementally adding other agencies and departments as time goes on to ensure that all approving institutions are under one roof. Allow me at this point to laud the European Union through the International Trade Center, a joint agency of the World Trade Organization and the United Nations, which provided expert advice and recommended best practices for the design and execution of a one-stop shop, learning from the experiences of other countries. I've been informed that the one-stop shop has been made an integral part of the World Trade Organization Investment Facilitation for Development Agreement, which is a new chapter in the WTO agreement.
Different stakeholders, including the European Union, which has funded the establishment of the business one-stop shop, has applauded Eswatini, has promised to continue supporting Eswatini, especially in attracting investments and youth, as well as women projects involving women.
This is a key milestone in the country's efforts to enhance its investment climate, foster sustainable private sector development, and position itself in a competitive business environment as an attractive business destination. The European Union is proud to support this initiative in partnership with the government and via the International Trade Center as implementing partner. Our partnership reflects the EU's broader commitment to sustainable development, a development that empowers entrepreneurs, including women and youth, strengthens local value chains and enables job creation.
The African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat has stated that Eswatini has positioned itself as a competitive and business-friendly destination.
Our well-functioning one-stop shop facilities have been shown to deliver substantial savings in both time and cost for potential and existing investors. Critically, they play a crucial role in boosting investor confidence and fostering increased investment flows. An effective one-stop shop sends a powerful signal to the global and continental investment community that the host state is not only open for business, but is also actively committed to facilitating a seamless investment journey.
The Afrexim Bank shared that it will now be easier to direct investors to Eswatini.
The question that I've always been asking by some of the investors that we work with as a bank, most of the investors are also our clients, and they've been raising a number of questions. When I go to Eswatini, where do I get the information? How easy is it for me to get all the permits? How long does it take for me to get my license? These are some of the practical questions that some of our investors, some of our clients who have been working with are asking. So I'm really pleased that you have now managed, with the support of the European Union and ITC, to put in place this one-stop shop.
The International Trade Center, which was on the ground as the business one-stop shop was being established, has stated that all stakeholders in the country were consulted.
The goal is to create a business-friendly environment that attracts foreign direct investment, fosters reinvestment, and promotes business growth. The development of the business one-stop shop involved mapping of existing procedures, identifying potential bottlenecks, and this process brought together a wide range of national institutions along with the private sector.
The International Monetary Fund says a business one-stop shop is crucial for investors, particularly in developing countries, as it simplifies the process of starting, operating a business, reducing administrative burdens, and facilitating foreign direct investment. For Nedbank Business Watch, Nelson Ndlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
That marks the end of our business news. Thank you for staying with us. It's 9 minutes after 2. We continue with the program after the break.
Yes, and Lesbia joins us to really drill into what is happening with the investor conference. We want to look at all the implications that come with it.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome back. This is our live interview with our economist, Sanele Lesbia, who joins us now virtually to unpack the significance of the upcoming Eswatini Investment Conference. In fact, we can't really say it's necessarily upcoming. It starts today until tomorrow, and it's set to attract a staggering 30 billion in investments and create over 10,000 jobs. What does this mean for our economy here in the Kingdom of Eswatini? So let's explore this impact of this rather landmark event. Sanele, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us. We understand you're joining us virtually. We hope your signal will not let us down. Firstly, let's start here. You know, when a country with just over 1 million population sets such a conference for global investors, it turns heads, right? I do want to understand what the kingdom is really telling the world here with this conference. What is your take from this?
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo, and good afternoon to the viewers. So for me, the basic one here, Mr. Ngumalo, is Eswatini is ready to host you. Eswatini is ready for business. Come, let's do business in Eswatini. That is what the government of the Kingdom of Eswatini is trying to communicate to the whole world. Like you've rightly said, this is what we call a watershed moment in terms of one of those events that are happening for the first time, but are just going to have much impact when you look at what is to come. And if you look around and you shop around the globe, Mr. Nxumalo, you will see that virtually each and every country has their own investors exposition, right, where you're just getting businesses to come into under one room and showcase, and where you just basically sell this country. And I think this to follow up that publication from Forbes Africa with an event such as this one, Mr. Nxumalo, that's quite ingenious from the side of the implementers within our government.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the government of the Kingdom of Eswatini has a breathtaking target of 12% annual economic growth by 2029. And, bookending our conversation, I did mention that this conference alone has an ambition of 30 billion. That's a lot of money. Yeah. But I wonder what that looks like in the short term. So the question that becomes, what would it really take to actually hit that mark, that 12% mark? And is this conference the catalyst?
To begin with, Mr. Nxumalo, one would say this conference is one of the catalyst or one of the things that we need to get well on our way towards being able to get into that 12%, 13% and 14% type of growth, aggregates and growth targets. Because what we're looking into right now, Mr. Nxumalo, is if we can bolster our gross capital formation as a country and, develop and grow this right capital within Eswatini so that this capital can now be used to spur growth out there in commerce and industry, and this is quite critical, and this is what this summit will attain, Mr. Nxumalo. And furthermore, to get people to come into Eswatini, Mr. Nxumalo, you need these events such as these ones, those big events where you are showcasing who is in the kingdom already, who wants to come into the kingdom already, and why are they in the kingdom already. And there is no better way to do that than to get the very same business persons to do that bidding for you, while they are also at the same time getting this free marketing that comes with all of this coverage and with all of the media coverage, both regionally, globally, and domestically.
Mr. Smia, we often talk about the AfCFTA and, the opportunities that it promises to come with. During the early hours of the day, the Business One-Stop Shop was launched. Wamgele Mene was supposed to be there. He did apologize, but, he did send his remarks through a representation from one of the people from his team. I do want to really understand, because when you look at Eswatini geographically, we sort of punch above our weight. We are land-linked to South Africa and Mozambique. We are part of SACU and COMESA. But in practical terms, how do we really, turn this geography into GDP with all these, trade agreements that are in place?
Like you are saying, Mr. Nxumalo, geographically, we seem to be so disadvantaged, right? But politically and block-wise, we are very much advantaged. We are part of SADC, we are part of SACU, we are part of COMESA, and we are part of the AfCFTA. And if you look at what is happening right now across the globe, you will realize that, with President Trump's, rattling off the nest, there is quite a bit of movement across the entire trading global landscape. And being in the position of Eswatini that says, I am in Eswatini, I am part of the Southern African Customs Union, which is the oldest customs union in the globe. I use the rand, which is the most stable currency in Africa. You can, from my borders, export to any country within Africa and get this preferential access through the AfCFTA. You want to go to your East African communities, you can use my COMESA links. You want to do whatever you want to even approach the American market, You can use the fact that I am a neutral country who only just attracts 10% tariff into the US. You go into the EU, we have those ties, we have those preferential access to those markets. So that's what Eswatini needs to sell. That's how you turn this geography into GDP by leveraging those ties and the markets you bring. You can actually unlock for an investor who comes from, say, countries like, for example, we know that's one of the contentious issues right now around the deals that are being made between China and the US and the UK and China. The issue here right now is, what if countries are now making deals that are going to somehow not be in the right side of China? And Eswatini is well positioned to offer countries that type of modality, of that conduit into the US market. So we may not necessarily be gifted geographically, but we do have all the right links when we do have the right access to all the big markets in the world.
Now, the chief executive of the Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority calls this a 1.5 day sort of conference. Just looking at the program right now, there's a lot of, focus on energy. There's a lot of focus on manufacturing, ICT, but also our Ministry of Finance as well has a big role to play. The program here has leveraging public-private partnerships to grow Eswatini's economy. That is going to be Minister of Finance Neil Reichenberg on PPPs, and then there's going to be Minister Savannah Mazia on transforming Eswatini into a digital hub, but also mining sector opportunities, Minister Prince Lonko Kela. I want to understand that if you are sitting across from a global investor right now, which sector would you pitch first and why?
I would actually say let's go into the mines. Okay. Purely because Eswatini, we are in the region and we've had quite a number of years on which we're not going into our mining horizon. So there is a bit of mining horizon that we have compared to quite a number of the regional partners. And the metals are doing very, very well in the global markets right now. So if you're putting the metals into the markets right now, that's a good strategy. And then I would push to ensure that government, for now, in my view, should lead the space in IT. That's why I like the theme that speaks of public-private partnerships, because we do need to get a bit of a basic infrastructure on the ground to make it easy for private companies to come into play and start providing those services. I mean, we're a small country. We've tried the monopoly model with MTN, and it took over 10 years for that model to even break even. So what we need is to get government to pull through and become that initial sponge into that market.
Mr. Spear, thank you so much for your time. It's 22 minutes after 2. Your insights have been very, very appreciated. We do hope that people are listening, the right people are listening. There's the policy decision makers, as well as all the key stakeholders that are part of this conference, and we hope that it's going to be a successful one. It starts this afternoon, and we are praying for a successful one. This has been our live interview segment. Let's go for a net break. The show continues after the break. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Watch, powered by Nedbank Eswatini. Lamhla sikhuluma ngetopic lemqoka kakhulu, which is savings and investments. It's a very important topic for consumers looking for saving opportunities and investments. To help us take us through the opportunities availed by Nedbank Eswatini, we are joined by Mzwandile Dlamini, who is the workplace banking consultant at Nedbank Eswatini. Of course, a very good afternoon and welcome to Business Watch. I think
what strategies noma ke ngimaphi ama-opportunities la khona eNedbank Eswatini availed for your customers ukuthi bakhone ukonga imali for their financials?
Thank you so much, Madam. We thank you for this opportunity. As Nedbank, we have said that Zwandile Dlamini, sales consultant at Workplace Banking. We do have opportunities for Eswatini to invest and also to be able to save. Savings and investment, it has to go with budgeting. We can give them the 50-30-20 strategy. Lesingasetshenziswa amaswati ekuthenini bakhona ku-investor ba-save kahle. What we are saying, kule 50-20, we are saying on the 50% of your savings, kukhona lama essential services emuntu lakawendako, kungaba irenti, kube ngema-bills, kube kuthenga kudla. Those are the things leti funeka ukuthi on monthly basis umuntu attende. Then we go to the 30% of the entertainment, whereby you need to budget your money to say when the logo na logo, when per month you are to usitwa. Then we've got the 20% of savings. In savings, we've got the short-term savings and also the long-term savings, because nowadays the economy lesphila it requires somebody ukuthi you must look at each and every cent that you have spent on your monthly income, just to monitor your expense, and also you check on your savings. To set a clear goal on your financial savings is that you can use the short-term savings, that is for emergency fund, and a long-term period savings that you can use. Then at Nedbank we do have those products that are assisting you to be able to save your funds. On the short-term goal, you can save for 3 to 6 months savings that will help you to have your essential.
Yeah. So is it practical, Njivele, Loguti, we do the 50-30-20? Is it practical? Is it effective? How many people actually do it?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, it is not practical. You need to force it to happen. For instance, if you want to do the savings need you to make stop orders to your account so that you will be consistent in savings. You know, if you are saying you're going to bring the money to the account, at some point in time, utawubambeka ube nema-challenges there and there. Uthole ukuthi le mali ayisefiki ngesikhathi noma awugcina usakakhona lokuthi uyisave. So we promote lokuthi bantu babendela ama-standing orders vele kwenda lokho ukuthi ngaleyo date loyibekile ngaso sonke isikhathi simo sikahle noma simo sikabi utawukhona lokuthi kube khona imali loyibekile. Yes, using our products at Nedbank, you can be able ukuthi ukhone loku save phinza ukhone lokuthi invest at the same time.
All right. So speaking of products, you do have accounts la corner for customers that want to save and also invest. Take us through la accounts la accounts customers that can open for their savings or investments.
Yes, of course we do have. Let me say for short-term savings, we have a Just Save account. The Just Save account, it's where you are able to save money and make it to accumulate, so that maybe if you have enough money, we can take it for investment. On the savings account, we have got a lucrative interest that the bank's depositing into that account, depending on the balance that it's inside the account. Then we also have these long-term savings of about 32 days notice, 60 days notice, and 88 days notice. On those notice, we are saying you are giving us the 60 or the 32 days notice before you withdraw the money, which means it's a long-term savings that you can have at the bank.
Okay.
Yes, then when you want the money, you come before the date to make that notice to say you'll need the funds, then we set the notice for you.
Okay.
Yeah, it also have got nice interest in it.
Okay. Yeah. All right, and then there are those that want to invest their money, of course, to try and increase their wealth over time. Which investment accounts do they have to open? Options that they have.
Okay, for those, we do have fixed deposit accounts. The fixed deposit account is when you come with your funds and we just invest it for a given period that you is required by the client. Usually we've got 3 months, 6 months, then the 9 months and 12 months. It works quarterly. Then get the interest, it's depending on how long is your period. Yes.
You guys do also have the stock market investments, bonds. Tell us more about those.
Yes, we do have the stock investments market. We do have the government bonds or the treasury bills. These are low-risk investments, and they provide fixed interest rates. They are easily to access, and they also have good interest on them. Yes, we also have the mutual funds, or you call it the unit trust. This allow you to your pool of money with the other investment, which makes stocks exchange. Also have the bonds and other assets that can be managed. Then there is this stock market investment. On the stock market investment, there are company shares that are listed under the stock market investment, which you can also go for it, although they are of higher risk. Yes, it depends with the economy, the fluctuation of the interest rate. It's also involved in those exchanges.
All right, so let's talk about consistency. I mean, it's important to be consistent with your savings. We plan, we save money, but if we're not consistent, it's not heading for a fail or disaster. How important is it to be consistent with your savings plan?
Yes, it is very important to be consistent with your savings plan because we want growth. You must accumulate. So it is very important that you always, that's why I've said in the beginning, you have to set a stop order so that it will assist you with your consistent. And when you keep on doing that, you know that your funds are growing on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nkosi. Well, there you have it. Savings and investments plan by Nedbank Eswatini. For more details, you can contact them at any branch. They are available countrywide. We were talking to Mzwandile Dlamini. He can assist you. He is the workplace banking consultant at Nedbank Eswatini. Or to interact with them on their social media pages. Bakona, we are about Fola. Let's take a break. Sabia Konamach. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Watch, powered by Nedbank Eswatini. We continue with our program. On our discussion, we sit down with Musa Masego, who's the head of trade at Business Eswatini, as he shares his insights on the launch of the highly anticipated Business One-Stop Shop, a bold initiative unveiled by Prime Minister Russell Dlamini. What does this mean for the future of Swaziland's business landscape? Join us as business journalist Nelsiwe Intlangamandla has more.
Thank you so much, Musa, for joining us on Nedbank Business Watch. So today, the Business One-Stop Shop has been launched. We just want to understand, as the biggest private sector organization in the country, what does this mean for the economy of Eswatini or to the business community?
All right. No, thank you for that question. Perhaps one should just start by really congratulating the ministry and APA for this important milestone. It, for us as Business Eswatini and indeed the wider business community, really signals the intention of government to stick to the implementation of the government program of action as was presented last year. I think it's important to really tie what we're here to launch today back to the overarching government strategy going forward. This, as we have seen from the remarks from His Excellency and the Honorable Minister, really speaks to streamlining some of the processes that investors go through in terms of applying for the relevant certifications, licenses, and any other regulatory steps for starting whatever investment ventures they have. However, we are cognizant that it is not the end, and that is why I made reference again to the government program of action, which highlights overall government's intentions of improving the investment climate in Eswatini. So by, again, sticking to the timelines to say in this particular quarter, this is what we'll be doing, I think we would also like to applaud the government for sticking to those timelines and really assuring and, like I said, really signaling their intentions to implement the programs as articulated.
Musa, we've spoken to the Minister for Commerce, Industry and Trade, Honorable Mangoba Khumalo, before, who has said that the ministry is reviewing different legislations to ensure that they are investor-friendly. This is after complaints from some investors. So how do you think launching this business one-stop shop at this moment will help attract investments to Eswatini?
That is true. So opening the facility itself, I think, certainly makes the process of starting the business, or at least for our investors, makes the process of settling much more easier. But what I think you're asking is a much more strategic question that speaks to the broader investment climate. And our view is that if, again, government commits, and as we have seen today, in terms of some of the activities that are planned in the government program of action, I think those would be addressed. So I would typically look at it as not from a fragmented perspective, but broadly, what other steps have we seen government put together to address these? So yes, there was an acknowledgement made regarding the regulatory environment in the country, that it's not perhaps the most investor-friendly. And to that effect, we did see, for example, the commissioning of the various levels under the Eswatini State Business Relations Forum, which again gives the private sector a voice within the policy-making space to say, what are some of the reforms that we would like to see? And as articulated in that particular event, that forum is chaired by the Prime Minister himself, just to underscore the importance of having private sector voice in that policy formulation. Not only that, but we are aware of efforts underway to review the act that established Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority. We understand also that there is a draft of the revised investment plan, as well as review of the immigration policy. I think that speaks to investor visas and so on. So yes, while acknowledging that certainly there are challenges within the current regulatory framework, we do applaud, I think, the progress that we're seeing towards reforming it. and perhaps would only emphasize that in order to achieve our objective, I think it's just to emphasize the element of collaboration, having private sector around the table, because we are at the battleground, if you will, in terms of all of these activities, having state institutions like APA who are mandated to attract investment, but as well as the other government organs who are responsible for other aspects of investment promotion. I think we're in the right path. It's certainly just to emphasize the elements of collaboration and, again, holding each other accountable where it matters.
I know that you are highlighting that you are involved in reviewing some of the legislation in the country, but maybe you can detail it to us. How involved are you? Because you are the biggest private sector entity in the country. I expect you to be on the ground when these legislations are being reviewed.
So I would say we are pretty much involved, and to their credit, the government do reach out whenever they have, whether it's reviewing a current policy or legislation, or indeed drafting a new one. They would reach out, just going through their normal consultative process, even before taking it down to Parliament, where we'd obviously have a chance to look through it. As Business Eswatini, we'd also have a chance to consult our own constituents, get their views on, what we would think could help strengthen whatever process or document is in front of us, make those submissions to government, and then take that forward. Obviously, with any process, we do understand that there is a bit of a give and take. That does not preclude us as Business Eswatini, obviously, from engaging with our members of Parliament, as we have, again, where perhaps we may have some disagreements with government in terms of what is in front of us. We still reserve the right to obviously approach the legislature at that point. However, what we are also now really pushing for is greater involvement of private sector, not in the consultation process, but also in the drafting of the legislation and or policy. I think once we tighten that element up and make it a bit more inclusive and comprehensive, I think you will find, or our assertion is that then the legislative process would be expedited, because you would have already had a lot of input from the biggest constituencies.
Before I let you go, Musa, Business Eswatini contributes 92% of the private sector GDP. So I have to ask this question: what do you think should happen, or what do you think should be done for this business one-stop shop to deliver fully on its mandate?
So like we heard that today marks the official opening, but it will be implemented in various phases, starting with both hybrid and then moving on to, I think, completely online at a certain point in time. That speaks to the client interface. What makes it then tick more, I think, is the interministerial collaboration. Because you have the licensing department under the Ministry of Commerce, you have the Eswatini Revenue Authority, Revenue Service, and you have other various regulators that are part of the process and ultimately will be housed here. What also needs to happen is then the streamlining of the various pieces of legislation that govern those entities, so that it speaks to sharing of information, for example, that I just submit it to one desk or one office, and all the different entities who've got an interest receive that information. like I mentioned, that we are aware that some of the work is underway. Like I mentioned, the draft immigration bill, the investment policy and the act that did establish APA. But what we'd also like to see then is how all of those work together. So I think what would certainly be required at some point in time later in the year is when we're reviewing the implementation of the government program of action to say, have we hit the milestones that we've reached in terms of our targets on improving the investment climate? Have we reached our targets on trade facilitation? And have we reached our targets in terms of improving the ease of doing business in the country? I think that would allow us to take stock of where we are and what specific actions need to be taken by both government and private sector to really realize the dream that is, having Eswatini as the preferred investment destination in the region.
What I am picking from this conversation, Musa, is that Business Eswatini wants to be involved from the drafting of policies and regulations so that you will look out for investors. Thank you for joining us today on Nedbank Business Watch.
That was Nelsiwe Ndagamanda, a very capable business journalist there in conversation with Business Eswatini. They were chiming in on the launch of the Business One-Stop Shop, which was officially launched by the Prime Minister, His Excellency Right Honourable Raselimiso Dlamini, this morning at the Sibegelo building next to the APA office. Let's go for a break. We have Head of Treasury from Nedbank Eswatini, Bongani Mabuza, to really understand the markets of the day. Welcome back to the program. We're seeing global markets on the move, currencies fluctuating and commodities adjusting. Also, equities reacting to geopolitical shifts, and the US dollar has strengthened against the Eswatini lilangeni, while gold prices have dipped per ounce. Brent crude oil trading at $65.39 per barrel, reflecting recent volatility. Let's really understand what all these movements mean now with Bongani Mabuza, Head of Treasury from Nedbank Eswatini. Mshengu, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a while. Good afternoon, Mguni. Good afternoon to your viewers. It's a pleasure to be here.
Happy to have you back on the program. Let's start by understanding the currency movements. Yep. We're seeing here the US dollar seeing a slight uptick against the lilangeni. What are some of the factors driving this currency movement, and how really it might affect Eswatini's strategies?
Yeah, that's quite topical right now. And what you actually find is that what's happening to the currencies has an influence on the rest of the markets, right, on commodities and as well as in equities.
Right.
So the big story around equities, currencies, is really, one, the low inflation numbers that came out of the US, which then have a bearing on interest rate expectations, which then have a bearing on the pricing of assets in the US. But we've also seen a weakening of the dollar. The dollar was significantly weaker yesterday, and it's a bit steady today, but it's still off its highs quite a bit, and there's quite a few reasons for that. We've mentioned the lower than expected inflation numbers that came out, and there's also the markets shifting their focus back again to trade, and the outcomes of the trade engagements that are happening between the US and various countries. We saw some progress over the weekend between trade talks between the US and and China. And there's expectations that the market is priced in. And President Trump has signaled that there are likely deals that are going to be announced between other countries that we can expect in the coming days. So that's basically what's moving markets right now.
You say these low inflation numbers from the U.S. have a direct effect on all, the other indices under your markets. I do want to understand, when we look at the gold prices, they have also dipped recently, but which 100%. Is interesting because it was a different conversation just, I think, a day ago. What are some of the underlying reasons for this particular decline?
Yeah, that's correct. So what you're seeing with the gold price is a slight dip this morning, but there was a gain in the gold price after the announcement of the U.S. inflation numbers, and this is because the markets are expecting that interest rates are going to be low.
Sure.
And a low inflation generally signals lower economic growth, and the expectation is then that investors are then running into protective assets, which gold is.
And then volatility with our oil markets today. The numbers will be up on the screen right now. I do have a few of the numbers on my phone here. And I want to understand these fluctuations, the implications that they may have for Eswatini's energy imports and inflationary pressures, if there will be any.
Yeah. So the oil price, I think, is one with significant consequences for ourselves as Eswatini. So oil had a 4-day rally, really. And that a main reason for that is because of the President Trump's rhetoric around supply from Iran, which is then signaling that there'll likely be lower supply into the global space if the U.S. continues to sanction Iran or oil from Iran. That could have consequences for demand in the world. And if you see the oil price going up, that is naturally an inflationary event, which then has consequences for the price of goods, not just globally, but also in Eswatini. It is potentially inflationary if it persists. But if there is a solution in the near term to it, we'll likely not see that. But also we'll also remember that the oil price has been on a downward trajectory over the last couple of weeks. And that has been positive for inflation in Eswatini. I think we've also seen that we haven't had an adjustment in the fuel prices locally in quite some time. But the recent global events might change that.
I do want us to get into global market equity trends, but before we get into that, you speak of, numbers being inflationary and perhaps if there will be solutions in the near future. What do solutions look like? What should happen for us to realize solutions?
I think that depends on the specific issue that is inflationary. So, for instance, if we're talking about the inflation within the oil price, that has a bearing on the prices of most goods and services in Eswatini. So the solution therein is usually a monetary policy solution to arrest inflation, where the central bank may decide at its discretion to adjust interest rates in order to accommodate or to alleviate the trend of inflation.
It's interesting because I do know that people from the central bank are avid watchers of this show, and I hope right now someone is tuned in and they're making notes because we might need that should that happen. Let's get into the equity market trends. We are seeing modest gains, and I wonder how these could impact investor confidence as well as capital flows into emerging markets like ours here in the Kingdom.
Yeah, that's correct. And actually, we've seen modest gains across the indices that we track on this show. We saw the S&P 500 up almost a full percentage point, 0.75% yesterday. And the leader there really was the tech names. We saw Nvidia up more than 5%, and this is out of news that they'd be supplying Saudi Arabia with AI chips. I think it's 18,000 AI chips, and there's a further supply to the UAE of AI chips, potentially up to 1 million that's going that way. So that is obviously positive for in terms of demand for Nvidia chips. And you've seen the same Nvidia and AMD were really the carriers of the indices, but you saw various equities indices rally yesterday. In the US, the FTSE was relatively flat, but closer to home within the JSE, I think the big story out of it was the Boxer results, which were out yesterday, and these are really the first results since Boxer went public on the JSE last year. So what we saw was that there was a slight decrease, in diluted headline earnings per share, but this is because of the dilution of the share price since the IPO.
I do realize that we have around 6 minutes left of talk time, and perhaps today, since we are done with what we normally talk about, we may want to get into, treasury strategies. And I know that, they are tracking what is happening, what is prevailing on the ground. And I wonder, given this current financial landscape, if you will, sort of indulge me here, what strategies that the Treasury is implementing to mitigate risks as well as ensure economic stability for Eswatini, or they should?
Yeah, thanks. And I think maybe I'll just, looking at your question, maybe I'll take a step back.
Right.
And I think it's quite topical, especially because of what's happening. You will know and appreciate that Eswatini is hosting its first investment conference.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow, which is the first of its kind for the country, and it's meant to showcase the capabilities of Eswatini as an investment destination.
Absolutely.
So we are aware that there's a number of investors, existing and potential investors, that are going to be there. So that is, and the country, through the various organizations within the country, from government going downwards, are going to be showcasing why Eswatini is open for business. And I think that is at the heart of driving economic growth, at the heart of alleviating economic challenges, is creating an environment that enables business to operate and to operate efficiently and effectively within the country. That is from a regulatory perspective, that is from an ease of doing business perspective. So I think that is, and I think the earlier interview was around the one-stop shop for businesses. So that is a step in the right direction, because it does ease the way in which business is done in Eswatini. So that is at the heart of enabling economic growth.
Absolutely.
And then the Treasury, in our case, being the Minister of Finance, also looks at a macro level what the country needs to enable it to be effective and to be competitive globally. So I think we can then look to the budget speech that the Minister of Finance delivered in Feb, which speaks to various things, including the investment in education, which includes investment in infrastructure, and building manufacturing capacity in the form of factory shells, etc. Investment in agriculture and stabilizing our healthcare system. So those are the building blocks that the government would have and would employ to enable an environment in which the economy grows.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bongani. It's a perfect parting shot, because what he has just said, he has really endorsed everything that this show has been about. We started the program with our business one-stop shop, and then we looked at the investment conference itself, as well as the markets with Bongani. But he is just summarizing everything and is saying that this has come now more than ever, very necessary at an opportune time. Let's go for a net break. We'll close the show very shortly.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
All right, so it's 2 minutes before 3 o'clock. We've come to the end of today's episode. You're watching a Business Watch powered by Nedbank Eswatini. It was lovely to be with you today.
Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and hopefully we see you again next week here on the very same show. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch was brought to you by Nedbank.